Well, for all the surprises and breakout performances over the course of the WNBA opening week, maybe the real story is the dominance of the league's elite. But might there be a spoiler or two lying in the weeds out there waiting to crash the party? Welcome to WNBA Hoop Streams presented by Google alongside Ari Chambers, LaChina Robinson, and Alexa Philippou. I am merely Sam Ravech. Great to have you along with us here. I just mentioned the league's elite. New York obviously picking up right where they left off from their championship run last year, and they get to see one of those spoilers in Indiana in just about 30 minutes or so. It's a good time to be a fan of basketball if you're in the state of Indiana or New York. I guess maybe not New York, depending on how you play it there. But nevertheless, it's a great time to be a fan. According to our friends at ESPN Bet, we'll get right into it. These are the two favorites, by the way, this year. Indiana and New York to win the title. Ari, I'll ask you, do the betting odds reflect reality, or are we just too dang early in the season to be talking about these two as favorites?
I'm never a fan of just making bold predictions too early in the season.
Yeah.
But I would say don't count out the Lynx for being a strong number two.
Yeah.
I think they have a little bit of an edge over the Fever, especially when you have a coach like Cheryl Reeve, who is arguably the best coach in the WNBA. You have a player like Napheesa Collier, who's playing her best basketball, has just gotten better over time, which is scary. And she's playing with a sense of urgency and frustration with her teammates so that she won't let them settle for less.
And I think it's a really good sign they're undefeated so far. And Kayla McBride hasn't even played for them yet. She's coming back from dealing with a personal matter, but she was on the bench yesterday. So I think it's a good sign that they're starting strong and can now incorporate a great guard in McBride back in the picture.
Yeah, and I believe the WNBA GMs picked Minnesota to win. Nothing against the betting odds, but I do trust.
Or maybe everything inside.
I do trust the GMs of the league very much, but I would also agree about Cheryl Reeve and just how great of a coach she is, and so I think that's always top of mind for people when they're thinking about Minnesota and what they can achieve this year.
Something that's even scarier is they've learned how to push through in late game situations and rally to win. So when you're winning in losing situations early on like this,
Right.
Ooh, scary.
It is scary. And the New York Liberty are scary once again. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about the defending champs. It's not a defending champ that's been making the headlines in the back pages in New York. It's a newcomer. Natasha Cloud has been tremendous, and she came on the scene strong. Debuted 22 points. She had 9 assists, 6 rebounds. She became the 4th player in WNBA history with a 20-point, 5-rebound, 5-assist game in her WNBA debut for a respective team. Ari, why is Tosh such a good fit for New York right now?
You know, I always say energy and all that, but she's literally the energy. When you have somebody with that much spunk that is so great on the defensive end, I think defense is a direct translator to effort. And when you have somebody with consistent effort, that's a great sign.
No doubt.
And I look at the Liberty Big Three from the past, and you've seen that they've had lulls a little bit, but Natasha never has a lull. She just is always on it, always with consistent effort, consistent energy. There's a reason why she's the leading scorer and rebounder on the team. When you have JJ and Stewie on your team and you're the leading rebounder, that translates to nothing but effort. And she's the offense is significantly better when she's on the court too. So that's just saying a lot to her point guard ability.
Why is it better, LaChina?
Well, in addition to everything that Ari just said, I think the word that comes to mind for me when it comes to Natasha Cloud is pressure. She is going to put pressure on the ball defensively. She is going to put pressure on the rim with her ability to get downhill. And when you have a team that can spread the floor the way they can and she's getting paint touches, it's a beautiful thing on offense. And I think the other thing that people forget about Cloud is that she's won a championship in this league as a lead guard for the Washington Mystics. And so she has that experience. And I covered that run through the finals. And one thing that stood out to me was that her voice was the voice I heard in a lot of the huddles going down the stretch. Even though she was one of the younger stars on that team, they had Christy Tolliver, they had Elena Deladon, they had Emma Meeseman. It was her voice. And so she brings that high level of communication, which the Liberty seems to enjoy so far. You know? Talking to Sandy, and I had some conversation with Sabrina and Brianna, they're like, she is actually helping our communication as a group because Tosh, you're going to hear her coming down the hallway. Whatever's going on the court, she'll make sure everyone's on the same page.
Well, China, I want to ask you about this because being around the league for so long, how much do you think it helps for a team like New York to bring in new blood like Natasha Cloud, like Maureen Johannes, and even Rebecca Gardner coming back from injury when they're going through this repeat bid and maybe they don't want to kind of lean back and rest on their laurels of what they did so well last year?
It helps tremendously. Not to say that every championship team goes through complacency, but it can be a thing, right? There's so much energy behind getting that first championship as a group, and then once you do it, You might exhale just a little bit, but the thing to remember also about Cloud coming into this roster is that the Mystics told her that her services were no longer needed, and Phoenix surprised her by trading her. So I feel like she has something to prove, and that type of chip on your shoulder can help a team and just push you and give you that extra edge to repeat.
And New York wanted her. They got her from the Sun, right? So that made a huge difference too.
But you mentioned that she's a champion. She's never been an all-star, so that adds to the chip on her shoulder, which is shocking. And when you enter a new team like this and you have such dominant players, the balance that you have to know when to speak up, she always speaks up, but the trust that her teammates have to have with her is beautiful. They actually let her be the leader that she is born to be.
Jonathan Kolb said in the introductory press conference, like, we have had our eye on Natasha for a long time, and she fits this system incredibly well.
That, honey.
So, yeah, it has worked out incredibly well. But we know that New York has the star power, LaChina, but like, and Stewie and JJ are going to be a nightmare matchup-wise for any opponent, as we saw last year. But like, the Liberty are showing there's so much more than that this year.
And you know what's interesting about that, Sam, is that they're showing there's so much more, but with different pieces, right? Benijah Laney is out with injury. Laney Hamilton, excuse me. No more Courtney Vandersloot.
Right.
Kayla Thornton is now at Golden State. And Jonathan Kolb has beautifully managed this roster. He maintained the rights to Maureen Johannes, even though she didn't play last year due to international commitment. Rebecca Gardner, who was injured, who was like a 31-year-old rookie in Chicago. We all loved her game. Now she's back in the mix of things. But there's also Kennedy Burke, and I think her role on this team is going to be so vital. I mean, through the 2 games they've played so far, and I know it's just a small sample size, 14 points per game, shooting 70% from the field and 86% from 3. This is a player that's moved around the league. She's played for Seattle, Washington, now New York. She played for Indy as well, so this will be a little bit of a reunion for her with this game today. But at 6'1", the versatility to guard multiple positions, to play multiple positions. Sandy's allowing her to attack the rim, the freedom to shoot the 3. She could be huge in this reconfiguration of a championship team that's looking to repeat.
I talked to Kennedy last week, and she said that she understands that her role is going to be bigger, and she's ready to assume that position. So exactly what LaChina said.
So New York, again, this is early in the season, guys, but in the 2 games, so they go out to Las Vegas, they make 4 threes in the game, right? Then they follow it up by a WNBA record in the regular season by making 19 threes, and they win both of those games. How scary is it, Alexa, for the rest of the league to now see how many different ways New York can beat you, like they could last year?
Right. It was something that was an element to their game last year, but I think maybe there was some idea of, are those losses that we mentioned, in the offseason, is that going to hurt them? And I think they've totally proven any of those doubts wrong. And I think they look better than they were in large stretches last year. And it's to the point of the roster construction, the management, how they've been able to retool things and also allow players like Kennedy Burke or like Alea Fibich, who really came onto the scene later on in the season last year, but now is able to kind of go right back to where she started, where she picked up from last year and be such a big difference maker. So I think, but whether it's scoring 56 points in the paint like they did against Aces or hitting their threes or just showing all the ranges of the way they can win. And I think right now they're the clear championship favorites.
I think the kids call that scary hours.
Scary
I love
hours?
it.
I'm still learning all the lingo here, but
I got you covered.
Thank you. Let's spin it forward to the other side and talk about the potential spoiler in the Indiana Fever. They split their last 2 games. Heavy dose of Atlanta for the Fever over the last week. Losing at home on Tuesday, then they followed it up winning 2 days later on the road in the ATL, despite the fact that they had a couple of off performances from Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. What does it say about this team now that they can have the depth? Because that was a big talking point by Boston in the offseason, saying we need to get deeper. Like that has now shown on the floor. So what does it mean for this team? They can play without those players every night.
I mean, they just have a greater margin for error this year. And so everyone can stop hitting the panic button. I realize that they lost to Atlanta at home and they barely won in Atlanta, but this is a team that has so much more firepower. I mean, look at what Natasha Howard did the other night against Atlanta, 20-plus points. Sophie Cunningham came into the game and was huge with her defensive energy and her three-point making ability. This is a team that's going to be able to beat you in a number of ways, and that's the mark of a championship contender. Everything you just talked about, Alexa, with New York. A team that can put different players on the floor, in different spaces. Stephanie White has the ability to move her versatility around, go small, go big. Leah Boston got into foul trouble. Caitlin Clark got into foul trouble. Those are things that are going to happen night in and night out. But now they have enough players to plug in those gaps. They have more experience. DeWanna Bonner hasn't even figured things out on the offensive end. So when that happens, just imagine. So yes, the margin for error for this team has grown, but be patient. Because with all those moving pieces, it is going to take time for them to gel and figure things out.
Yeah, and that was something I spent a little bit of time with them in training camp, and they did say, yes, they want to win a championship, and they have that urgency of wanting to win this year and win now, but they also do know they have to give themselves some grace in the lead up to that and how it is going to take time for people to get used to Stephanie White's system, for the players to get used to each other. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that, but 2-1 and it's still not a horrible place to be. And I think the defensive end too, there's a lot of signs of growth that they could have as they move forward, especially against the Liberty tonight.
It wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about chemistry and things, but like Stephanie White said, she wants her team to be able to play through breakdowns and come together and grow. But I'm looking at them like, you see Lexi Hall and Caitlin having a good old time. You see that Sophie's back and she has that spark of energy. I just look at this Indiana Fever team and I think they have a way better culture than they did last year. I think that's top down in general. I think the players are having a better time. That could be because they have more pieces that set them up for the win. But I want to touch on Atlanta a little bit because this is kind of a matchup nightmare for Indiana. That's why they lost. Like BG and Aaliyah, this is a feud that we've seen over the past few years. And it's always BG coming up on top. But BG was in foul trouble yesterday, so that was to Atlanta's detriment. Not yesterday, whatever day that game was. But it was to Aaliyah's detriment. To Atlanta's detriment. So I'm just looking at that matchup. And then Ryan, when she decides to play defense the way she did against Caitlin, and then you have Amaya Caldwell and you have Alicia Gray locking Caitlin down like that, it's not that Caitlin was having a super off night. It was because they put the pressure on her.
You guys have all mentioned the role pieces around those two. And you also touched upon their new coach. And this is no knock on the previous administration, LaChina, but what does Steph White bring to this organization, both on the floor and off it culturally?
Yeah, she brings championship experience. She has vast experience both on the professional level and on the collegiate level. But what stands out to me specifically is her history with the Indiana Fever. She was an assistant coach when they won a championship there in 2012, and she was a head coach who led the Fever to the finals in 2015. That's a really big deal. She lives and breathes Indiana, right? Born, bred, won a championship at Purdue as a player. And so there's just a deep passion for what the Indiana Fever stand for that connects Stephanie White. Her players understand that she's done this at the highest level. She's developed the best players. She's coached champions. She's coached MVPs. And so that level of experience just allows the team to relax in a little bit and know that she's been there. She's done the things that they want to do and will unlock another level of confidence, I believe, for this group as they move forward.
Yeah, being in Indiana for training camp, one thing that stuck out to me on that level, too, was the connection between Caitlin Clark and Steph White. They were both number 22 from Steph White as a player there for the Fever. And, I think Steph's basketball mind is really well respected, not just from a player like Caitlin, but across the board from, all the top down from new president Kelly Krauskopf to, all the players that she's coaching. So that's really, I think, what we're seeing. And, they're going to continue to tinker things. We know she's a coach that prides herself on defense. That's part of the reason why she was brought in, to make sure that defense was better. And we'll see how, they continue to tinker things offensively, too.
We all know Steph, because she has worked with us in the past. It's tough to get her to crack a smile sometimes, but she has a lot of fun. And I know she's enjoying her time coaching there in Indiana. We saw a massive, massive weekend, both on the floor and on the TV screen with the ratings. You guys are at home are watching, and it's evident over the course of the opening weekend, over 1 million viewers for both doubleheaders on ESPN this past Saturday. And then the matchup with the Fever and the Sky hit a whopping 2.7 million viewers. How is this sort of viewership shaping the future of women's basketball, Ari?
Business-wise, the more eyes, the more revenue. We are looking at just a tidal wave of women's sports just having such a splash. And the key to it is to have continued investment. How do you have continued investment and continued buy-in from the audience? When you put it on TV, when you allow the audience to consume the product, fandom grows. And when fandom grows, there's more buy-in. There's more negotiating power for the players in their new CBA agreement that they're going to work with the league about. And it's just a matter of, look, the numbers show that the product is amazing and it's sustainable. We didn't know if it was going to surpass 2023, 2024. Now it's 2025. We're still breaking records. And I firmly believe that the more eyes on it, the better the lead-in is for the just grand scheme of what women's sports is.
Whether that's right or wrong, we tend to judge the health of a league by the viewership, but also it's by the attendance. So let's not just pretend that like people are only watching at home. No, like the people are going to these games.
And look, these are like sold out arenas. People are reconsidering the fact that they had to make modified arenas in the past. And so like you're looking at like DC or Atlanta saying, do we need to have bigger arenas in general? They're moving the games to bigger ones. And so I just feel like right now the potential is limitless and people are having experiences. In New York, I go to a lot of those games, and that is an experience. You have Ellie the Elephant. You have complete buy-in with the audience. There are different rituals they do throughout the game that just cultivate a great environment.
And I can't say enough about the lead-in to this particular season, which I think was very strong, and we saw it last year with the college women's basketball fans now catching on and being like, oh, we can watch women's basketball all year long, so we can follow our favorite player to the WNBA. Like, that's becoming a real thing now. It's something we've always wanted and hoped for. And then you have to also give credit to Unrivaled that kept people watching the WNBA players that we're seeing now, picking up new fans along the way. And so that kind of momentum in the offseason of the W, I think, has been fantastic.
But the fandom was great because the WNBA has now put preseason games at the former alma maters of the players. And so that's a great way to bridge the gap. The question for so long has been, how do we translate the college fan into the WNBA fan? And I think they're figuring out ways.
If you build it, they will come, right?
Yes,
and so they have built it and continuing to build it as we talk expansion. But let's actually head out west because that's enough of the Eastern Conference. We got enough of you guys. They're playing some ball out there. And we'll talk about the team that lost to New York in the finals last year in Minnesota. They were sent on the road for the first two to start, handled their business there, then returned home, took down Dallas before escaping narrowly, come from behind win over Connecticut to improve to 4-0 on the season this year. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right, LaChina? Is that kind of the motto Cheryl Reeve's going with right now?
Well, I don't know. You know, it's interesting, Sam, because I've heard a lot of conversation about how the Lynx roster didn't really change in the offseason, but it did, and I'll get to that in a moment. First of all, Alexa's point that Kayla McBride hasn't even played and they are still undefeated on the season goes to show that it's much more than roster that goes into a competitive team. But there are a couple players I want to point to. Jessica Shepard being one of them. She was the number 4 overall pick in 2019 out of Notre Dame. She has started off averaging 11 points and 9 rebounds, 3 assists per game. She did not play on this roster last year, so that's one change. That's a lottery pick. So Cheryl was playing without 1 lottery pick.
Right.
She's actually playing without 2 lottery picks because Diamond Miller is back available. Her season was shortened last year due to injury. She was the number 2 overall pick in 2023. And so roster may not look different in terms of major free agency, but there are enough tweaks and pieces that are available now for Cheryl to work with. And we know when Cheryl got something to work with, when it comes to development and chemistry, she's going to get the most out of these players.
I really think you're seeing, too, Jess Shepard they could have really used her last year. Who knows? They still could have won the championship without her, but that's like the perfect piece that they needed, just another front court presence and the way that she's able to do so many things on the floor. I think we're really starting to see that now.
Yeah, and I hope Body On develops as well because she could give them the size. I mean, you guys remember last year, Alana Smith was worn out down the stretch of the season. So they have more reinforcements in the front court, which I think is great.
1 game, 1 overtime, 5 total points. That's all that separated Minnesota from their 5th title last year. And despite, again, other contenders taking some risks, whether you look out at Phoenix, New York, everyone making moves, you know, Minnesota was somewhat content with what they had, but to your point, they have made some adjustments. Speaking of adjustments, the Aces were also one of those teams that tried to make some adjustments and change some of the deficiencies that they had. And they took down the Mystics last night, thanks in large part to some just heroics from Jewell Loyd. Alexa, are you concerned at all with Vegas and how they have started, or are we just talking a little slow start out of the gate?
I am a little concerned. I do think they will get better as the season goes on. They have to obviously add Cheyenne Parker-Tyus back in the mix, which she'll be able to come back in after she gives birth to her child. She's out right now with pregnancy. Jewell Loyd, I think we are starting to see her get more acclimated to just this new system. Obviously, she hit that huge shot yesterday, but generally speaking, it's been a little bit of a tough going for her, especially Ari and I were at that Liberty game the other week, and it was taking her a little bit of time to figure out how to get involved in that offense. But I do think there's some of the same concerns we saw last year. A'ja Wilson, I think, really needs another, front court presence to play alongside, which hopefully the Cheyenne Parker-Tyus re-addition will be able to take care of. But I think their margin of error, you brought that concept up earlier, I just think it's very slim right now. They really lean on A'ja having a fantastic night, which she can provide more times than not. And then also their guards to be hitting shots, and that can be a little bit up and down. So gonna say the jury's still out a little bit because they do have so many new pieces, especially their reserves, but I'm a little worried right now about their ability to get that third title.
Yeah, I definitely have some concerns as well because this group of reserves is not as proven as last year's group, right? Where you had Alicia Clark and you had Tip Hayes, like you had players that, Sydney Colson, on, that had been there or won championships, et cetera. Where, you're asking Crystal Bradford, someone who, has been a successful player, but to come in and really fill in big shoes, or Dana Evans or Tiffany Mitchell for that matter. I believe Jewell Loyd will definitely get her footing over time, but it's more concerned about the lack of experience in that reserve group and watching the fit, because experience isn't everything.
Right.
But is this the right fit to complement, the big four for the Aces?
And instead of us looking at this team saying, oh, they filled the pieces, it's still the question marks around it. So it's not, it's everybody made off-season moves to add so much significance. But I'm looking at Jewell Loyd. I thought that was going to be the piece that really helped A'ja, but she does need front court help. And Jewell hasn't been as consistent as we have seen her in her earlier years. And so that's my main concern too.
Yeah, and Megan Gustafson and Liz Kitley, I think those two players and what they can provide in the front court, to your point, Alexa, is something to watch.
A lot of moving pieces there in Las Vegas. We'll see how that all transpires as we go along through the season. Now let's take a look at what fans are searching for, presented by Google. Searches for top WNBA rookies spiked 230% in the U.S. over the past week. And guys, what that tells me is you guys at home, the viewer, think this is not just a one-woman race for the WNBA Rookie of the Year. In fact, there are a lot of rookies that have been balling out. So I'll start with you, LaChina. Who has been one rookie that has kind of been above the pack a little bit to start their career?
Well, if I go home to the DMV, I actually have two options.
Okay.
Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen. And Kiki has been balling. All the double-doubles have been super impressive. But probably surprising to most people at home, I'm going to go with the guard in this situation.
I know. Stop the show. Stop the show.
Sonia Citron has just blown me away. And there are two particular factors that I want to point out. One is her ability to make late game plays. When you look at some of the first few games to the Washington Mystics, she hit a big three last night against the Aces late. She hit a three to bring her team within two against the Valkyries, scoring big buckets and hitting big free throws against the Sun after Brittany Sykes fouled out. I mean, she just is so cool, calm, and collect and just plays with a poise. But also it's her efficiency. As a rookie in the WNBA right now, she is shooting 51% from the field and 47% from three. That is efficiency. That says comfort. It says confidence. And I am thoroughly impressed with how she's
Was
shown
she
up.
underappreciated at Notre Dame?
I think they just had so much talent, right? That I wouldn't say she got fair opportunity to shine, if that makes sense, right? Because she plays off the ball, right? They had two very good on-the-ball dominant players in Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. So the play didn't often start with her. She had to kind of get hers as the ball circled around.
Right.
I always knew that she was on the field. And Neil Ivey always tried to tell us, y'all better watch out for Sony. But now, especially with the injury to Sykes and just the makeup of that team, the injury to Georgia Amore, she's getting more opportunities to really shine.
And personality-wise, the cool, calm, and collected really benefits a team like the Washington Mystics when you have such high-strung players. I think that she is just like that constant thread throughout the team.
That's kind of what that's her MO, and it always has been. AP, you got a rookie?
Yeah, I think we should go back out west. I actually want to highlight two because we have two really good rookies. They're older rookies. They weren't in the draft this year, but they are still having a really big impact. They are two French players, Janelle Salon and Carla Light, 23 and 21 years old respectively. They came over and are just, especially yesterday, really stuck out. They dominated this game against the Sparks. Salon had 18 points, Light had 19. You have one player who's more of, a wing who can do a lot of great things, can shoot the three ball really well. I think she had 4 threes yesterday. Light has a great playmaking ability. She can also call her own and get a bucket as well. So I thought that they really stood out to me as players that maybe we weren't talking about just because when we think rookies, we think players that were in the draft. But these are two first-time WNBA players who obviously have played internationally. Salon is an Olympian with the French team, and they are going to be really great pieces for the Valkyries to try and figure out their identity around, even if they're maybe a little less well-known around the States. But I do want to also highlight this really cool moment. We saw their chemistry on the court, but they also had a great chemistry off the court when they had this little moment after the game.
Second win in Valkyries franchise history. What does that mean to you in this franchise?
Sorry, my English is not very good, so she... Yeah. Ouais.
Deuxième victoire, qu'est-ce que ça fait?
On est trop contente, j'espère qu'on va continuer sur cette durée et on va faire une série, quoi.
She's super happy and she hope we're gonna keep going to play like that and yeah, I mean, she's happy.
It seemed like she understood the question after just a couple words. Like, Janelle just had to say 3 words, and she was like, "Oh, got it. Okay,
I got it. That's so great. I give her a lot of credit too. Like, that is not easy to do, to just come over here and just kind of get placed into an organization like that and play as well as they are. Like that deserves a lot of credit. All right, Ari, who do you got?
What deserves a lot of credit is somebody who overcame. Let me just point to Sanaya Rivers. Sanaya Rivers, the highest drafted pick from NC State. Go Pack, always. She has shown up late to training camp because of the sudden death of her mother. And to be able to overcome like that, this is a player that we looked at going into the league as league ready, right? Yep. Offensively and defensively. She had a slight edge over Isaiah James because of her defense. Sanaya is near and dear to my heart, and just knowing what she had to overcome to be able to show up, and her teammates had to come in and stand in for her and be strong. She credited Tina Charles being a great vet for her, checking in every single day, even though Sanaya said she didn't need to do that. But having the wherewithal to know that your team has your back when you have to step away like that. She is averaging 11 points per game, shooting at 44%, 5 rebounds. So she's doing the Sanaya Rivers things with this weight on her, and this is what she had to say.
Losing my mom has been the toughest thing I've ever faced in my life. And I'm playing for her. I came out here to play for her, and I know she's looking over me and protecting me in a different way. This night meant the world to me because this is what she wanted for me. I never thought I'd be here. I wish she was here to see it.
And I know that I'm here supposed to break down her game, but just knowing the player that she is, and we know Sanaya is, like I said, the two-way player that she is. We know that she can come and rise above adversity to produce for her team because at the end of the day, she loves basketball. But for her team and her teammates to love her back, that's how you know you're in the right fit. So whatever happens with Connecticut within the next few weeks, I'm not even looking at. I'm looking at how they banded together as a team, and that's what basketball is all about to me.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you saw the support system that she does have around her, and coming into the league, it's important to have that. Not everybody does, but in a situation like this, I can't even imagine. Forget basketball.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even imagine putting your mind towards trying to study a game plan or trying to study your opponent when you have everything that she's dealing with going on. So that was.
Yeah, going pro is hard enough.
Yeah.
Having to deal with loss on top of that.
No doubt.
You have to be an adult. You have to, be an adult alone.
Incredibly well said, Ari. We are almost out of time, but we are not out of time enough to talk about some of the games that are coming up over the course of this weekend. Guys, give me a game that you're looking for. LaChina, start out with you.
I'm looking to see who's going to get their first win this weekend. Is it going to be the Wings, the Sun, the Sky? That's what I have my eyes on. But I'll tell you this, it's going to be tough for the Wings or Sun because I like the dream. To Ari's point, the way that Ryan Howard started off her season, BG is a lot to handle inside with Bree Jones. But I want to see who's going to get a dub, their first dub.
Little Jewel Lloyd kind of returning there, right? Aces Storm, that's
Well, Sam, hello. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I stole yours.
Indubitably. Why would you take my thing?
Just team you up.
That's fine. That's what a host does,
That's
right?
really good.
I can't wait to see that. And then, like, Alicia's back with her old team.
Yeah.
It's just like a switcheroo. I love that for them.
That's great. Yeah, I want to go back to the show the game we saw. We were talking about the top of the show,
Yeah.
right? Liberty
Coming up.
Fever. I want to see if the
Sorry.
Fever can really handle the Liberty offensively. I mean, the Liberty have been able to score in so many different ways, like we talked about. The Fever need to have a better night defensively, but obviously the Fever can play really great offense too. So I'm really excited to see that one go.
For what it's worth, New York was listed as 2.5-point favorites going into this game on the road. We'll see how that plays out, because I know LaChina was kind of, you were hammering ESPN Bet a little bit there, going after the GMs, but
GMs really,
the
they're
GMs
doing.
know what they're talking about. Let's stick with the GMs. They know what they're doing. All right, that's it for us. We are out of time. Make sure that you tune in to all of the games across all the platforms across the WNBA this weekend. The season just getting underway, so we'll have a lot more basketball to talk about as we go along. For Alexa Philippou, LaChina Robinson, Ari Chambers, I am Sam Ravech saying so long. Thank you so much for watching WNBA Hoop Streams presented by Google. Have a happy Memorial Day weekend, everybody.